Teysa Karlov versus Karador, Ghost Chieftain. Yeah, we've got some heavy hitters in the hand there. But we can get into Read the Bones soon, hopefully, so we'll keep that. We are on the draw, so it is more likely that we will get into another land. Okay, our opponent keeps a no-lander. Just seeing if our opponent did that on purpose, because I don't want to go and get a turn ahead of them if they accidentally F6 through their turn. Yeah, so my opponent is a little off tonight. What time is it in this country? We are on 12:30 in the afternoon, so we've already got an advantage over our opponent. If they are playing in the middle of the night, as it seems as though they are, we'll just pass it back over to them. And yeah, we've effectively... Yeah, that is a disadvantage for us because we've had to discard a card. We'll just get rid of the planes and hope that that doesn't bite us. But I don't want to go a land up on my opponent because they mistakenly passed the turn. Okay, well, turns out we could have discarded a swamp. No matter, we'll just get that down. We'll go for Viscera Seer. You never know, we might get into a 2-mana spell next turn. Teysa Karlov is a Necromonicon commander. This is a 2/4 for 4 mana in Orzhov. Whenever a creature dying causes a trigger to activate, it activates twice instead. And creature tokens we control have Vigilance and Lifelink. Karador, Ghost Chieftain is a 5, 6, 7, 8 mana Abzan commander, 3/4. It costs 1 less for each creature in your graveyard, and during each of your turns you can cast 1 creature from your graveyard. Our opponent has got down a 2/2 Vigilance. We will go in for the 2 mana creature that we just called up apparently. This is the Tithe Taker. And then we can just yield through till the end of the turn. Tithe Taker is one of the new cards from Ravnica Allegiances. I'm just waiting for our opponent to take their turn. There we go. This is a 2/1 with Afterlife 1. During your turn, spells your opponents cast cost 1 more to cast, and abilities cost 1 more to activate unless they are mana abilities. And this is Erstwhile Trooper. Discard a creature card to give it +2/+2 and trample until the end of the turn. Okay. That is a means of our opponent loading up their graveyard. And this appears to be some kind of Ravnica tribal deck thus far. These are all new cards from the new set. Guilds of Ravnica, the previous set that is, Guilds of Ravnica. And yeah, this one is of course from the Ravnica Allegiances set. Now then, I think we are going for Read the Bones here. I don't think our opponent's going to wipe the board or they won't be playing creatures. I think we're safe to go for Read the Bones. That is scry 2, draw 2 and lose 2 life. Alright, still no white mana, but we do have Spawning Pit I don't particularly mind getting into. Then we'll have a backup Sacrifice outlet. Yeah, so I think we can draw both of these. No guarantee that we would draw into another land. And we're not going to swing in because we don't want to trade our Tithe Taker for anything. We do have a couple of... We concentrate more on death triggers with things like Harvester of Souls, Midnight Reaper, Matter Reshaper. But there are some death triggers that also give us tokens, such as the new Afterlife mechanic. This will trigger twice when Teysa is on the field. And we can also make use of the token that comes into play. It will have Vigilance and Lifelink as well. So, of all the creatures that die and come out with a token, the main mechanic that we're really worried about there is Afterlife, because the token that comes out is a flying evasive spirit. And I think the flying is going to be relevant. Our opponent gets out Martyr of Dusk. When this dies, you get a white vampire with lifelink, and there we go. That's not something that I would include in this deck because I want the evasiveness of the flying spirits. Yep, and there is the Doomed Traveller. We're both slow rolling this game out, thankfully. I don't seem to draw into my mana rocks in this deck for some reason. But not to worry, we can go for Teysa Karlov and have our opponent start worrying about multiple death triggers. I think Midnight Reaper is the thing to go for next turn, and then we can maybe start... Yeah, we can start thinking about sacrificing that Tithe Taker. At least we don't have to worry about a go for the throat or anything like that. Hitchclaw Recluse. This really does seem to be some kind of... well, that one's not from Ravnica. Yeah, this might be some kind of budget / pauper build, which is interesting. Not really a fair game if that is the case. Anguished Unmaking now. I think in that case we are going in for Doomed Traveller. And we'll get down the Midnight Reaper and we will start using our sacrifice triggers in an attempt to get into a land. We can draw a couple of cards here by sacrificing one creature. We will lose 2 life when we do that. Midnight Reaper is whenever a non-token creature you control dies, deals 1 damage to you and you draw a card. But that will trigger twice thanks to Teysa Karlov. Alright, and we go in for... Yeah, we'll sacrifice Doomed Traveller. We'll not only get a scry, but we'll also get 2 damage dealt to us, 2 cards drawn, and we'll get a couple of spirit tokens as well. There we go, and that will deal 2 damage to us, and we don't get into a land, unfortunately. That is unfortunate. Lingering Souls, I don't think we want to see. I mean, I like Lingering Souls, but we want to get into more mana, preferably. I'm actually going to... Our opponent only has 3 cards in hand, and it seems to be a really casual deck that they've made, so I'm just going to sacrifice the Tithe Taker as well. I wouldn't normally do that, but I want to try and make a land drop this turn. This deck can be quite mana hungry, and 38 lands in the deck, and we are not drawing into them for some reason. See if the Scry can put one on top. Alright, there we go. We're so close yet so far. Yeah, we'll just leave it at that and get it back over to our opponent. Okay, here we go. This is a 6 mana 3/3 with lifelink. And our opponent is going to explore when this enters. Now then, we do manage to get into that scrubland, which we could have done with drawing into last turn. Just wondering if we want to play the Reassembling Skeleton, just to sacrifice it to Viscera Seer and get some more card draw going. Yeah, that might be an option for us, because we would like to get into another land. We've got some pretty heavy cards in hand currently. But I'm about to show the reason that we do want the spirits as opposed to any other tokens in the deck, and the reason that I'm making use of Afterlife as a mechanic in this deck. We can recoup some of the life lost from this deck from things like Necropotence and Midnight Reaper by always being able, or most of the time being able to swing in with Flying Spirits. And in this case we get 4 life back from doing that, as well as dealing 4 damage to our opponent. If these didn't have flying and they were just 1/1 humans or something like that. Does this thing have reach? No, it doesn't. Okay, I didn't think it did. Yeah, so if these things didn't have flying, then these could block quite easily. And yeah, we'd be in a much different scenario than we are now. Alright, there we are. Looks like our opponent just wanted to get their 2/2 lifelinker into the graveyard. I think we will go for that reassembling skeleton plan. This will come into play. We can sacrifice that. And we'll draw a couple of cards and lose a couple of life again. Not too worried about the life loss now that we have some life-linking flying spirits in play. Also makes it difficult for our opponent to swing in as well, because even though they've swung in, they are untapped thanks to the vigilance. Never actually looked at these afterlife spirit tokens before. They're nice looking tokens. Alright, Teferi's protection I think is actually worth holding up. Let's see if we can... Yeah, we are behind on the lands, but we can't play that land anyway, so not too worried about that. Now then, what do we want to discard? I think we can get rid of Cartel Aristocrat. And yeah, we'll get rid of Austere Command as well, because we have Toxic Deluge, and we'll just hold up to various protection just in case our opponent goes for a board wipe. And down comes Karador Ghost Chieftain, or Karador Ghost Chieftain I should say. And I think we're going to be going for an Anguished Unmaking onto that. Don't think our opponent's going to swing in here. Okay, and at the end of our turn, as we said, we'll go in for Anguished Unmaking. That will send Karador back to the command zone, and we'll lose 3 life for the privilege. And we'll get into the swamp that we knew was on top. Where are we now? We're at 4-6. Yeah, is it likely that our opponent has a board wipe? I mean, even if they do, we could rebuild quite easily because we have the Midnight Reaper in play, and that would draw us 3 cards as it stands now. Actually, do they have to die? Yes, of course they have to die, otherwise Karlov wouldn't trigger it, so we would actually only draw 2 cards there, because Teysa Karlov won't die. She'll go back to the command zone. That's something you always have to be... you always have to try and remember that. The number of times I've tried to kill off my commander with a skull clamp and not drawn the cards, because they actually don't technically die. Oh, and our opponent does have a Reacher there, which they didn't use last turn. That is fine. Elspeth's Son's Champion. We're not... I think this is the only token generator in the deck that doesn't throw out... flyers. Oh, there's Ogre Slumlord as well that throws out Death Touching Rats. And Ophiomancer throws out a Death Toucher as well. So there are some non-flying tokens in the deck. It is mostly spirits, but because Elspeth's Son's Champion throws out so many tokens, they're almost like blocking or attacking fodder. And because she generates so many, it would be silly not to play her. Wormcoil Engine is the same. When this dies, we'll get 4 3/3 artifact worm tokens. They'll all have lifelink, and 2 of them will have Death Touch. And the Ogre Slumlord and the Ophiomancer, like I said, they throw out Death Touches as well, which can swing in quite well. Either our opponent blocks them and kills their creature, or they let the damage through and we get incremental damage through on our opponent. Now then, our opponent seems to be wanting to swing in here. Okay, deciding to take 3 creatures in at us, and then a couple of creatures through to Elspeth. This is a 3/3 lifelinker. We will certainly block. I think we'll block with Teysa there. And then we will gang up on this thing. That'll gain us both 3 life, but we'll trade our creatures. Just have to hope that there's no death touch shenanigans goes on with this Vigilance Human. Our opponent has 2 cards left in hand, so they might have a trick up their sleeve. But no, apparently not. We do manage to get some creatures off our opponent's board there. And they get into another common. This does seem to be some kind of pauper build. So make no bones about it, this game is quite unfair. I'm going for Elspeth. Yeah, our opponent seems to be fretting over... I don't tend to get a massive conversation going in the chat. I just concentrate on the gameplay lest I be scorned by all of you watching at home. You're always very, well, not all of you, but some of you are very keen to point out mistakes that are made, so I tend to concentrate on gameplay more than anything. I'm going to have a bit of fun here and go in for the Worm Coil engine. And then we'll just swing in at our opponent with the Flyers. And yeah, we can go in with Midnight Reaper as well. In fact, we can go in with Teysa also. There we go. Down comes a Gateway Plaza for our opponent. It enters tapped. And you sacrifice it unless you pay 1. And you add 1 mana of any colour with Gateway Plaza. I don't know anything about Pauper, so I've no idea if this is actually a good card in Pauper or not, but in Commander it just doesn't cut it, I'm afraid. 1 card left in our opponent's hand, and we are going back over to our turn. There we go, we have a Plains. Well, we'll definitely plus on Elspeth. Might be time to Demonic Tutor for a Skull Clamp. I do want to show that you can use Skull Clamp in this deck. And Skull Clamp does count as a death trigger, so for 1 mana to throw it out and 1 mana to equip it to a 1/1 Dork, you can in fact draw 4 cards with that, which, I mean, if Skull Clamp isn't already broken, it certainly is in Teysa Karlov. So let's do just that. We'll go for Demonic Tutor. And there we go. We get into the Skull Clamp. We'll throw that out, and I'll just equip up 1 Summoning Sick Soldier token. And we'll show you exactly what I just mentioned. 4 cards in hand now. We're about to get 8 cards in hand, and there we go. It triggers twice. So we'll draw 4 cards from the Skull Clamp, an absolute auto include in any Teysa Karlov deck. If you want to build one, then be sure to include your Skull Clamp. Unfortunately can't get into our Falconwrath Noble. Well, we'll swing in before we decide what we want to do. I think Worm Coil Engine and some Spirits should suffice, and we'll throw in some soldier tokens as well. And I need to decide if we want to go for Athreos or if we want to hold up Teferi's Protection. I think just for the fun of it we'll go for Athreos. The correct play really is to hold up Teferi's Protection, but I don't really see our opponent doing a whole lot this game. They are in top deck mode. And on death trigger of Martyr of Dusk, our opponent gets their 1/1 Vampire. Now then, we'll go for our Athreos. Athreos also goes really well with Teysa Karlov, especially if you run Athreos as part of the... oh, what are those cards called? There's a bunch of... I think there are a bunch of 1/1 humans for a single black, and you can sacrifice, I think it's 6 of them to get a demon out of your deck and onto the battlefield. And if you were to play that with Athreos and Teysa in play, well, Athreos triggers twice per creature dying, which means that your opponent would have to pay 6 life per creature going into the graveyard. Either that or they give you the creature back. So when our Worm Coil Engine dies, which I may well kill it at the end of this turn, our opponent's going to have to pay 6 life if they want us to keep it in the graveyard. And down comes Karador again. And Martyr of Dusk comes down again from the graveyard. Karador Ghost Chieftain, don't forget, can allow our opponent to cast 1 creature from the graveyard each turn. And then at the end of the turn we're going to get a scry, a couple of cards, a couple of damage, potentially some more damage onto our opponent. And we'll also get 4 worm tokens into play as well. And these are all death triggers, which is why they're all doubling up with Teysa in play. Vigilance and Lifelink on all of them, Death Touch on 2 of them. And now our opponent needs to decide. Yep, they're taking the hit, that is 6 life. And a scry will give us Ophiomancer. Don't think we care about Ophiomancer now. And then we'll play Reliquary Tower so we don't have to discard, and we will just swing in at our opponent. No point dragging it out any longer than it needs to be dragged out. We should get, well, we can go wide on our opponent, and there are some flyers that can definitely get damage through as well. There we go, a little bit of shameless self-promotion to my opponent there. They said that it looks like they don't play Commander very much, which, not trying to cast shade on my opponent, but it's a little bit obvious. I don't know if, like I've said a few times, I don't know if they're just playing a Pauper build, or if this is just some kind of budget build from our opponent, but they may be able to enjoy some content from us. And when I say us, I'm not trying to make the channel sound bigger than it is. I do it all by myself. When I say us, I actually mean, us as a community and as an audience and creator alike. We can all welcome new people into the fold, of course. But that is Teysa Karlov. A completely unfair game, but our opponent seemed very nice, and we managed to show off a few of the death triggers that you can get going with Teysa Karlov, Midnight Reaper, Athreos. Viscera Seer is an enabler. There's Worm Coil Engine buried under here somewhere as well. So hopefully you all enjoyed that, and I will see you all in the next one. Let me know what you think of Teysa Karlov. Thank you for watching.